Black Friday seems to be losing steam, and in-store sales were reportedly down this year. According to the National Retail Federation, shopping is much easier to do online. It's very similar to sex in that way.
Jimmy Kimmel on his show last night on the Talk of the Town with us this morning. And shopping is a big issue, of course. People doing it online, people doing it in brick-and-mortar stores. Our guests this morning in studio, Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney and Utica School President Chris Salatino. And guys, how are you doing with your shopping so far this holiday season?
Well, the Assemblywoman, the Assemblywoman has Hannah with an H out there doing all her shopping. I'm sure this year. You're busy.
I do it all. I only have one son, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews.
Online or in regular stores?
I go to locally owned and operated businesses. You know it.
Good.
I don't. I ran the Penny Saver for so many years. We have these wonderful locally owned and operated stores, many of whom can't compete with these national chains, and I try to go to all of them.
Do you dress your dogs up for Christmas, Claudia?
They have clothing that they refuse to wear. It's like a wrestling match putting on, so I don't even bother anymore. I got this great little Harley sweater for my dog, and he hates it.
Really? Chris, how are you with your Christmas shopping? Have you started yet? Or?
It's not my department.
What?
It's not my department.
You're an excellent.
He goes to the jewelry. He goes to the jewelry store on Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, just as they're locking the door
for his wife and daughter.
That's it.
You're an excellent delegator.
I have
Very
one
good.
person to take care of, and that's it.
And you get it done.
I'll get it done Christmas Eve.
We're talking with obviously Chris about the lawsuit against the Utica City School District and the contract with the teachers, and then also it came up about the idea that well, Claudia, you can sort of restate it again there, that maybe the reason for this lawsuit against the Utica City School District was a bit of grandstanding, perhaps.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with money. Look, money makes the world go round, but you have to wonder why the federal government. It's great that we have refugees, and they've done. Many of them have done, wonderful things for Utica. I'm particularly partial to the Bosnians because ja govorim bosanski jezika, which means I speak Bosnian. But the problem is the federal government needs to give money to the school district to cover all the different languages and the cultures and the people that need to adapt, and we haven't done that. So now you have an odd situation where we're going after the one school district in the state that has opened its arms and welcomed refugees and brought people into this community, and now they're being attacked for the one thing that we should be given a lot of credit for. Right. And we should be getting the money and the resources from the federal government to handle these issues so these people can assimilate and become good citizens of our community and get educated that we promise to all good citizens. And this is what's been going on since I have worked in the Assembly as a staff person and now as a member of the Assembly. I voted against every school budget that has come forth, and I've gotten people say, "Oh, why do you vote against it?" Because we continue to not reform the formula, and we underfund the school districts that really need it. We have this complex formula, and it's deliberately complex so that the politicians in power can manipulate it for the people that they want to protect. And Utica has always gotten the short, right, or whatever, for whatever reason it is. Back when I was working for Assemblyman Dave Townsend years ago, there was some funding that came up. We realized that the Utica City School District was eligible for small city school aid that was not going through. It was a bill that we could have put in. There was a pot of money sitting there for Utica and Rome. We tried to put the bill in. We got a Democrat to put it in. Another problem with Sheldon Silver. Why can't we put the bill in?
Right.
At that time, it was just before I came in, Dave was representing Utica.
So you actually used the tool to have a Democrat.
But we have to find a Democrat to put the bill in because Sheldon Silver won't allow, heaven forbid, a Republican to have a good idea to put in. So fine, whatever. There's no pride and ownership in the Republican side. We do what we have to do for our constituents.
Get it done.
It was cut off by Senator Bruno because it would have been reduced funding to some of his school districts who are getting more than their fair share. Right. So again, here we go, more politics interfering with the ability of us to fund our school districts. And now Utica, again, as Chris said, Utica deserves an award for opening their arms to people from battle-torn countries. We're bringing them in here and saying, yes, we want you to be our citizens. We want you to be part of our community. But we need to adequately fund that. We can't put all that burden on the taxpayers of the city of Utica.
1,700 either English
the federal
learning
government
or
needs to exactly.
Students.
And many, as I said, wonderful citizens here. We're not afraid of citizens in this country and the state. We have to be careful. Obviously, we've had some issues recently, in France. The terrorists are going to come up with different ways. and be more and more clever. The harder we try to stop them, the more clever they're going to be to try to get in and infiltrate. So we just have to be careful and cognizant of that. But back to the city of Utica. We keep denying the funding to this school district and others, by the way, other upstate school districts. And I've noticed this. I used to think it was just us. And now that I have this 7-county assembly district that goes all the way down into Orange counties, there's many communities there who also get underfunded. But Utica is the one district, I think it may be one of the only districts in the entire state that actually has increasing enrollment, more students every year, versus which means more funding, more consideration, and they're special kind of student. They're students coming in from, again, war-torn areas. They've been persecuted in some way, and that's how they've gotten their refugee status. So we need extra help to care for them, and to educate these kids. And you also have the students who aren't refugee students. They're just regular old Utica students who families been here for generations. They need to get adequate funding as well. So I think it's crazy the way that this goes on.
So Chris,
but again, Sheldon Silver is a big part of this.
How do we help as average citizens? How do we help you in your fight to get the funding, to get what you need?
Well, it's putting pressure on our legislators, really, because if you go back to 2007, that's when this really all started. And they took away the foundation aid formula and exchanged it with the gap elimination, which ultimately hurt poor districts like Utica, was like one of the fifth poorest districts in the state.
Out of the
socioeconomically.
school districts.
So we have the refugee situation, plus we also have we're also an urban district, which and being poor, that again creates its own issues because they, as far as socioeconomic stature, it definitely affects your education. So we need all of this help. So we have two issues that we deal with, and that's why our test scores are never going to be where they need to be. I can't say never because we've worked hard. We watched King's School really change dramatically, and just when we met the state's requirement, they raised the bar on us, and that created putting it into a receivership situation where had we increased the test scores like we did the year before, we would have been fine. So there's a lot of issues that we deal with, and we deal with it well with the money that we have.
And quickly, just getting back to the union contract situation, do you believe that you're in a good state as far as negotiating the contract if you were able to maybe eliminate or change the annual professional performance review or the APPR, as you mentioned before?
Well, again, we only had two items to deal with that the state required us to do, each district to do on their own. One was testing, which was allowing the district to have a third state or an additional state exam that we prepare ourselves for our kids. And the other item was peer review.
Okay.
You can also have your own peers, and those are part of the negotiations in the contract right now.
Well, best of luck moving forward. Claudia, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
And we'll be watching and hoping that we clean up Albany once and for all.
There's another trial to watch.
Yeah. As we say that, the march continues for this guy in Albany, this music professor at College of St. Rose, to have a museum of political corruption based in Albany as well.
Great. I thought it was going to be based in Utica.